Welcome to Camp Constitution Radio with your host, Hal Shurtleff. This show is heard on WBCQ The Planet every Monday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's also heard every Saturday at 4 p.m. That's sort of a rebroadcast of the show on itmnation.com out of Concord, New Hampshire. And this show is brought to you by Camp Constitution, which, among other things, runs a week-long family camp. Our next camp will be at the Toa-Nippy Christian Retreat Center in Ringe, New Hampshire, which is in the southwest corner of the state, Cheshire County. And it will run from July 10th to the 17th. We're lining up some great speakers. Mrs. Chris Ann Hall, will be returning. This will be her third time at our camp. And we have people like the Patriot Pastor Garrett Lear, who's been a regular host, a regular guest on the show. And we're also trying to get some confirmations of a couple of other potential speakers and instructors at the camp, and we'll announce that as soon as we can. And today I want to talk about a few things that are in the news. And I did invite my good friend Dan McGonigal on at a very short notice. Hopefully he'll be able to call in. But before I do, I've mentioned our late friend Sam Blumenfeld, the author of over a dozen books that deal with education and the corruption of our country through the educational system. His last book was Crimes of the Educators, which he co-authored with Alex Newman. And Sam had donated, or I should say that he bequested his library to me, and I should say more so Camp Constitution than me specifically. And he passed away June 1st, and I took possession along with my good friend Bill McNally, who was the head of the Sam Blumenfeld Literacy Foundation. We took possession at Sam's request prior to Sam passing. He had the material, a lot of it stored in two storage bins, and plus his apartment that we had to vacate. He was in he was living in a friend's home in a hospice type situation. Anyway, there was well over 200 boxes, and it was a lot of work, but it was actually a lot of fun going through his writings and his. And he did suggest that most of the books that were, books that he didn't write, and some that he did, that we sell on Amazon or sell to raise funds for the camp. And we've been doing that right along. If you go to Swamp Yankee Books, that's the Camp Constitution book on Amazon, you'll find a lot of the things. Some of them have been autographed by people who knew Sam. And we've been archiving a lot of his writings as well as his speeches on Camp Constitution's website, campconstitution.net. And you will see a button or when you get to the website, you'll say Sam Blumenfeld Archives. And that's been made possible by two special people, Eric, our webmaster, and there's information about his services. If you go to Camp Sponsors, you'll see his, and he does a phenomenal job, and Mark Affleck, who was at camp last year, and I've known Mark for many, many years. Mark is the PDF king. He scans in many of these articles and books and reprints and makes them available. He also will take the cassettes and even the reel-to-reel, the old reel-to-reel tape that we have, a few of Sam's speeches he made, as well as the VHS videos. And Sam spoke in all 50 states. He spoke in China. He spoke in New Zealand, Canada, Australia. And a lot of these correspondence he had from some of these leaders in different parts of the world, different parts of the country, all over the United States. I think it's pretty rich history. And the speeches he made, a lot of radio shows. So it's a slow process, but what I do is I sort of go through it, and I've been uploading some things. I have limited scanning abilities, unlike Mark, who would take me a month to do what he does in half a day. But we're finding a lot of letters, and some of them are quite rare, I think. He had a few letters from the former head of Katanga, Mose Shombe, who was kidnapped and murdered by the Algerian thugs. Sam became friends with him, as Sam was one of the founders of American Friends of Katanga, and a lot of that material from that organization has been put into PDF file probably for the first time ever, and available nowhere else. Some really rich history. Also, Friends of Algeria, and some correspondence he had with many leaders from those groups, as well, including Schoenberg. In fact, Sam interviewed, went to Madrid, Spain in 1964, where Schoenberg was living in exile, and he interviewed him. And I found, not only did I find the original, Sam, he didn't, I don't think he did shorthand. He would just take a lot of notes in longhand and then transcribe it into a typed format. So I have the notebook with the questions and the answers, as well as the typed transcript, which I don't think was published. There was also a few articles. A lot of the things on the site have not been published anywhere, and some of them have been published in various places. He did a newsletter, a monthly newsletter, for about 12 years, maybe 15 years, the Education Report. I think there was 2 versions. He did one for a number of years, and then I think he changed publishers, so there was, and that went on for a few years. All of those are archived, and I tell you how vital and important some of these things are. Last month, we're talking early December, well, actually November, a man named Mark Tucker is speaking at the New Hampshire State House, invited by a few Republicans and a few Democrats. Now, most people hear the name Mark Tucker, they doesn't really ring a bell. It's M-A-R-C. By 1996, I think it was the December 1996 newsletter, Sam wrote dedicated to him. Who is Mark Tucker? He exposed him for the elitist fraud that he is, that he's basically a longtime supporter of international education, a total takeover of the federal education by the federal government. And, well, when we got wind, thanks to a Common Core opponent, Anne-Marie Banfield, who did a little story about it, and she knew who this guy was. Anyway, we were able to get up there, and we had Dr. Duke Pesta, who was a guest on the show not too long ago, and we reprinted that newsletter, and we were able to pass them out to all of the attendees, as well as give one to Mark Tucker himself. So it's almost like Sam is he's speaking from the grave, we should say. And I'm of the opinion that his work will go on for generations to come. In fact, we hope that people will know more of him in the next 10 to 15 years than they did while he was alive. Sam has a very interesting history and background. His parents were Polish immigrants, Jewish Polish immigrants. One of his siblings was born here along with Sam, but the other siblings were born in Poland. I think he was the next to youngest. He was born in 1926, if my memory serves me right. And he had nothing but love for the United States. He was probably more of a liberal Democrat in those days, or a Democrat. The term liberal Democrat really wasn't too well expressed. So he was a liberal in some respects, but he had just a great love for the United States, and he went to schools in the Bronx. He lived in a tenement. The dad was a pushcart fruit peddler, salesman, fruit peddler, what have you. But Sam worked hard working with his dad, and he was a World War II veteran. And he went on to college and went back to Europe. He spent time in Italy from March 1945 to the end of the war, and had some very interesting experiences there. He was in a artillery unit and saw some action. And you see Sam was a very scholarly man. On the short side, you just couldn't see him with a projectile in his hand, loading it on a 102, so whatever he used. But anyway, that's what he did. And I found a couple of interesting articles, which I don't think were published, but I'm sure Sam would love to see that get out. By 1958, back up a little bit, he got into the publishing business. He worked for several publishing companies, including Grosset and Dunlap, and got to know a lot of writers in the intellectual elite of New York, some conservative, some liberal. And he had correspondence with folks like Ayn Rand. He knew Ayn Rand personally. Somewhere he did have several letters from James Baldwin that were handwritten, but I could not find them, unfortunately. And some manuscripts were sent to him and there was a lot of people who became well-known that weren't too well-known then. But in his article that we have not published yet, it's a very brief article on becoming a Christian, I think he called it. He said that by 1958, after his dad passed away, that he became an atheist. He said he was a sad atheist. a reluctant atheist. He wasn't a real militant one. And because he was, his publishing company was going to publish a book written by a woman that influenced Ayn Rand. The name slips my memory here, but Rand knew her very well, and he got a hold of Ayn Rand and asked if she would write the foreword to the book. And he explained that when he met her, he let her know he was an atheist, but he said he was a reluctant atheist and a sad one. And she was just the opposite. She was a militant atheist, a hateful, nobody believe in God, you're a moron, you're an idiot, and so forth. That was her belief. And Sam could never embrace that. But by the late 60s and early 70s, he was operating. He spent some time working for the John Birch Society, and it's a publication, the Review of the News, and was very well received by people that read his materials. Anyway, he published a book, it was Who Shall Tutor, and it was very well received. And then he was doing some more research on education, the history of education in the United States, and that's when he started finding out about the Pilgrims and the Puritans and their Calvinist roots and how important the faith was. And he was led to read the writings of John Calvin, the famous Reformation leader, and that's when he became a Christian. And I think it's quite a testimony to a man, an intellectual atheist Jew, who was just so impressed by the scholarship of the brilliant John Calvin. And John Calvin didn't write little pamphlets, little Bible tracts. He wrote the Institute of Biblical Law, the Institutes. It was like a 1,500-page book, and it was heavy reading. So anyway, I'm just glad to be able to make this available, and I thank Eric and Mark Affleck for making this possible, and helping. And we also got Sam's Alpha-Phonics. And his Alpha-Phonics was really, I think, his most important work, teaching a few generations how to read phonetically. And we made it available in PDF format. And thanks to Bill McNally, who videotaped Sam's 128 lessons, all short lessons in the book. And that's all available in video and audio, plus the PDF. So you can actually teach people how to read, or teach yourself how to read. If you've been a victim of the look-say method, you can start from scratch. And Sam did a lot of remediation. He taught a lot of adults who were functionally illiterate how to read. And on top of that, he said he used to hate a Down syndrome student. And he was able to teach a Down syndrome how to read phonetically. So anyway, I really hope that people can just appreciate what he did and start, get to the website, Sam Blumenfeld Archives. And on this other half of the show, by the way, this show is heard on WBCQ The Planet. WBCQ is shortwave. It airs out of Monticello, Maine, up in Aroostook County, which I get up to, and I hope to be up there in February of this year. And I usually get up there 3 or 4 times a year. And I got a chance to meet our great board man there, Robert, who was come to a few of our functions I was involved in. He does a phenomenal job. But a couple of things in the news today besides wild card football. The Article 5 convention, which is rearing its ugly head again. The governor of Texas came out and called for one, and he's saying that we need to rein Obama in with an Article 5 convention. Well, I got news for you, Gov. I said, even if that were to happen, by the time this convention is called, Obama will no longer be president. You rein big government in. You don't do it with an Article 5 convention. In fact, that's the last thing you want to do, Gov. What you want to do is nullify and say we will not enforce unconstitutional laws, and we're not going to take the federal money. So we'll give the money back that you gave us for all of the education, for the highways, and all these other things. We're not going there. And it's interesting, too. You think this Texas governor would learn, here he is, where most of the illegal aliens are coming through, and the federal government is not willing to obey the laws. The Justice Department will not enforce the laws. So all of a sudden, you have a bunch of, he's got 9 amendments he's proposing, and that's going to scare Obama to death. Obama and his Justice Department will say, oh my goodness, they're going to have new amendments. Oh heavens, we are in trouble. We better not have a convention because we're going to lose our authority. We're going to be powerless. It's nonsense. And it just shows how gullible these good patriots are when they fall for this nonsense. These neocons, by the way, they must be laughing themselves silly when they write their books and get on these radio shows and sound like they're really hard, really conservatives, and they're really real good patriots and so forth. And they turn around, they get another book out at $35, $40 a pop, nothing but fluff, and people fall for it. They fall for it. Most Americans have never heard of Article 5. Well, if they have, they never really looked into it. Oh, but they hear Mark Levin mention it. And boy, if you oppose Mark Levin, he'll call you names, you see. And a lot of vicious name-calling that they've been engaged in, ugly things, and even threats. You know, we're gonna run you out of politics if you don't buy into this. Yeah, and they don't tell you, by the way, they won't tell you. When they testify, they'll say, nothing to worry about. Even if there's a bad amendment that's proposed, 3/4 of the state legislators won't do it. Most of them are Republicans. We got nothing to worry about. Really. Like the Republicans like Mark Huckabee, who's an Article 5 supporter that embraces Common Core, or Jeb Bush that supports Common Core, or John Kasich that supports Common Core, governor of Ohio. In fact, the National Governors Association that has a copyright to Common Core is pushing an Article 5. So why should we be surprised when a governor is pushing an Article 5 convention? Their association is behind it. Yeah. Tell them to stop Common Core before you get a convention. Why don't you just say no to Common Core? Oh, no, they don't want to touch that. Or say no to Agenda 21. And actually, in Texas, thankfully, there is some move to repeal Agenda 21. All these Republican governors are in, right in the tank with big government. Not to say all of them, but most of them. You see, behind him in Massachusetts, Charlie Baker. Oh, Charlie came out. We're not going to have all these Syrians, these Muslims. And then all of a sudden, well, I've been thinking about it. Yeah, he probably got a phone call and said, "Hey, Gov, you're going to take them, or you're going to lose a couple of $1 billion for your highway money." You see, so these states are up to their eyeballs in it, and if these people don't get on the ball, we're going to lose our freedom. And if you think having an Article 5 convention with unknown delegates, with people who despise the Constitution, neocons, the Chris Christie types. In fact, it was Alan Keyes, whom I hope to have on the show sometime soon, that was said to as support of an Article 5 convention. He said, how are you going to control the Romney faction? He said, in the Bush faction, the Chris Christie faction, those people hate the Constitution. They hate the 9th and 10th. They're embarrassed about the 9th and 10th Amendment and the Second Amendment. And you think you're going to have your amendments go through? You know, these people compromise. Oh, sure, we'll back that amendment, but you have to back our amendment. You know, the amendment that's going to do away with the First Amendment, this corporate the personhood stuff that Wolfpack is pushing. Or, yes, we're going to have the federal government fund elections. How's that one? Yeah, and you tell you what, we'll support your balanced budget one, but they know will not balance the budget. They will not cut taxes or the size of government. That's why they'd have no trouble with that. It's interesting too. These progressive types, they don't mind working with you. They'll be happy to work. They'll cross the aisle when it comes to Article 5. But the minute an Article 5 convention is called, they will fight you. They hate you probably more so than they hate those who oppose an Article 5 convention. It's just amazing. Mark Meckler, who's the founder of the Convention of States, I mean, it's just so obvious if you look. He's hobnobbing with people like Van Jones, this group called Living Room Conversations. Go on the web and put in livingroomconversations.org. You see a little video, and it has Mark Meckler, and it has these leftists all holding hands and singing Kumbaya. We have so much in common. We have common ground. That's the Delphi technique. Yeah, I may have common ground with people. Yeah, we both like raisin bread, or we like our eggs over medium. But when it comes to politics and morality and freedom, we have nothing in common with these people, nothing whatsoever. And as soon as they have this convention, they will bite you, they will kick you out. You'll be on the outside looking in, and they will vilify you, just like it happened in New Hampshire. These folks, let's cross the aisle. Yeah, we'll fight the Real ID Act, and that's all well and good. But as soon as when it comes to Second Amendment issues or right to keep their arms, they don't want to touch that. And when these freedom people lost their election bid oh, the vilification was pretty nasty, basically saying, yeah, sayonara, you right-wing fanatics, you wackos, you what have you. So they want these folks who think you can common cause with the people who want nothing to do with liberty and freedom. You're making a big mistake. It's called the Delphi technique, and it's been perfected by the so-called progressives. They spend billions of dollars doing this, and people fall for it. Oh, we're going to sing Kumbaya as we write new amendments to the Constitution. And there's some people that should know better, but they get so caught up in this. Well, they say, well, it's better than doing nothing. It's better than nothing. Really, that argument was used during the Nixon administration when he had the wage and price control. Well, at least he's doing something. Yeah, he's doing something. He's making matters worse. You know, if there was a fire, to do something would be put the fire out, maybe get some water or some kind of get a fire extinguisher or do something or contain it. But what they want to do, they want to throw gasoline on it. Well, at least we're doing something. Yeah, throwing gasoline on a fire isn't going to make it any better or put it out. And let's see, also there was the issue in Oregon with the media, and it's really ridiculous to see this. The media is, oh, the militia, Ohio militia, or the Oregon militia did this. They're taking over the building. They're doing it. Folks, there is no Oregon militia. This is a group of private citizens, and I can sympathize with them to some extent, and I haven't read all the details, but I can agree with their sentiment, but they are not a militia, so stop calling them a militia. Okay, a militia is something that's sanctioned by the state. It's constitutional under Article 1 of the Constitution, that the governors, that the members of the militia are answerable to the governor, and that to enforce the constitutional laws of the Constitution. And that's not what's happening. I wish there were a militia in Oregon that would simply tell the feds to get out or those who are usurping their authority, but that's not what's happening. They're good people, but they are not a militia. That doesn't mean they couldn't be part of a militia, but it's a private entity and it's not a militia. And I was trying to get my good friend Dan McGonigal to discuss that, and he's sort of an expert on the subject. So he's been a guest. Edwin Vieira had been also a guest on the show. Oh, I wanted to mention too that as I was going through Sam Blumenfeld's material, and I think I've just got one box to go through. I'm just about finished. And I don't want to be too hasty with it because there might be some gems in there, and I don't want to miss them. But I found an interview that Edwin Vieira did with the late Otto Scott in the 93 and 94 on federal usurpation. So I'm hoping that may already be on YouTube somewhere. Otto Scott, he had a show called Compass, I think it was. I don't know if it was a local show or he just interviewed people and then made the VHSs available. So there could be. I'm going to see if it's on YouTube or Vimeo. There's also an essay that he wrote, Edwin Vieira. He took a pro-life defense. He was criticizing the anarcho-libertarian Murray Rothbard and two others who were very pro-abortion. And it was about a 10-page article. And I don't know if it was published anywhere or not, but I'm going to see if it wasn't. I'll try to get Edwin's permission to make it available as well. We've talked a lot about the Article 5 convention. I think it was our very first show back last January, and we had Edwin Vieira on to talk about it, and I had Publius Hulda on just a few weeks ago, and it's something I've discussed it. I did actually several shows on that specifically. If you go to YouTube, you'll see some of those shows. I think back in June or July, it was called the people behind the Article 5 convention. So I've got, and what I'll do is you'll see, of course you'll hear the audio, but I've got a lot of the photos, screenshots of Mark Meckler with Van Jones, and I've got screenshots of quotes by some of these people and some documents there. So it's, and if anybody is interested in this issue, please call me directly. My number in Boston is 857-498-1309. I'm on Facebook. There's a Camp Constitution Facebook page. You can reach me there. You can also go to another Facebook page called Stop the Constitutional Convention. Now, there's two pages with the same identical name. One of them is all uppercase. That group is based out of Utah, and so that deals with sort of Utah-type legislation. But the one that I'm involved in is Stop the Constitution Convention, and it's, you'll see upper and lowercase written out. So, and I'll be happy to supply you with resources, put you in touch with people. If you're living in the continental United States, the 50 states, and interested in the status of your state and want to contact people, I can do that. I've got resources. I know I've got. If I don't know them personally, I can know people who do know people in all 50 states that are working on this important issue. Right now, 27 states have got live calls for an Article 5. New Hampshire's got 2 new ones we just saw, and I'll be up there to testify later on this week on it up there with some other folks. And it's an ongoing thing, folks. And I'm convinced that in spite of the money, the absolute unlimited access to the neocon radio, and all the misinformed people that think this is a solution, all the emotional appeal, I think that we're going to be able to prevail. Won't be easy, though. So again, let me recommend Camp Constitution website, campconstitution.net, and you will find the Sam Blumenfeld archives there. Some great reading and great listening. And share it too, folks. Don't be stingy with this information. Get it out. Copy and paste it. Let other people know what's there. Some of it's there for the first time anywhere in the world. And I think, and I know Sam didn't write this stuff just to store in a box. He wanted people to know what he had, what he thought, and what he believed. And it's great research. It's not so much what he personally believed in his feelings, but the research, the stuff that he discovered. And he was an incredible researcher. And also our wonderful summer camp program. Now, this camp is it's a family camp. We have people of all ages, families, moms and dads bring their little ones, their infants, their older adult children. We have unencumbered adults, minors. It's a great program. We're well supervised. It's a lot of fun. We learn a whole lot. We make friends for life. It's in a wonderful environment. It's comfortable. You're not roughing it. You're in the woods. There's mosquitoes, and you might get a little sunburn, but there's a lake there, and we're going to have a field trip to Concord, Lexington, Massachusetts. Some great historical, some people who know their history about that area will be that the Patriot pastor, Garrett Lear, Tom Moore, Tricon Hat Tom, I should say, and Mrs. Chris Ann Hall will be one of the featured instructors, and we just have a great time there. It's well worth it. And we tell people, put in what you can. We'll cover the difference. Don't let the cost be a deterrent. And it's an all-volunteer association, and we have many people that like to help donate. And if you can't make it to camp and you like what we do, you like listening to the show, become a camp sponsor. Or if you don't have a business, maybe it could be a local, maybe a group that you belong to. You can make a donation, and we'll put that group's contact information on our sponsor page. And you notice we have sponsors from different parts of the country, not just New England. We get sponsors from as far as, I think, Michigan, and I think we got someone down in Alabama or Mississippi and Missouri and Ohio and Michigan and all points in between. So, and the camp is made possible because of people like that who are generous and really appreciate what we do, and in a small way impacting the lives of the people not just that go to camp, people listen to the show, people that see our YouTube video, people who come across us at homeschool shows or in parades. So anyway, I'm out of time. Thank you for listening. God bless you. Until next week, I am Hal Shurtleff, Camp Constitution Radio, WBCQ The Planet, and IPMNation.com.